One of President Obama's closest advisors is pulling back the curtain on U.S. foreign policy during the Obama administration. Ben Rhodes was a speechwriter during Mr. Obama's 2008 presidential campaign. After the election, he became Deputy National Security Advisor to the president. He was closely involved in key decisions on Syria, Iran, and Cuba. In his new book, The World as It Is, a memoir of the Obama White House, Rhodes takes us behind the scenes of the biggest moments during the Obama presidency. Ben Rhodes is the brother of CBS News President David Rhodes. Welcome, Ben.
Hey, John.
Let's start with North Korea before we get to the book. The meeting is back on the 12th. I know you're not a fan of President Trump's, but doesn't he deserve his due here in getting this to where it's gotten so far?
Well, look, I think diplomacy is preferable to military conflict. The question is, what does that diplomacy produce? What I think is most likely is you'll see the North Koreans make commitments to denuclearize in the future. But in the past, we've seen them make those commitments and not follow through. And the follow through is the question, John.
Let me turn to the book, because starting with President Trump, there's a line that's already gotten a lot of press. I know this is about the entire administration, but let's start on this comment from former President Obama. What if we were wrong? What exactly does that mean?
Well, President Obama wasn't unlike a lot of Americans after the election. He was trying to figure it out. And we went through different theories. Was it the Russian meddling? Was it the campaign that the Democrats ran? And we were on that last foreign trip, and I was sitting with him in his presidential limousine, and he'd read a column saying, maybe Democrats had pushed too far in an embrace of kind of globalization and had gotten away from, that sense of identity that is important to people, part of which was what President Trump had stoked. But I think, frankly, the reality is any number of causal factors led to President Trump, and what I answer in the book is that question, which is I don't think we were wrong.
Well, actually, what you say in the book is that you should have seen it, because you said when you distilled it, stripped out the racism and misogyny, we'd run against Hillary 8 years ago with the very same message Trump had used. She's part of a corrupt establishment that can't be trusted to change.
Well, I woke up the morning after election night kind of shell-shocked. And that's when it hit me, that
is that what he won on, a change election and a corrupt establishment? Well,
that was his message. The racism and misogyny was also a part of the message, and that's important, Norah. But I think, I remember election night sitting there in my friend's apartment, Cody Keenan, who's a speechwriter for President Obama too, and President Obama called us to talk about what he was going to say the next day. And we're all just absorbing this news and this new reality. And I do realize in that moment that I don't think that we had inhabited the likelihood of Trump winning, that we hadn't put ourselves in that place, and you had that shell shock, and then the next morning you start to analyze it, and that's what I'm talking about there in the book.
This line has been focused on by critics of the President Obama, because they say it repeats a flaw that they've seen in him throughout his public life, which is that what he meant in that question, what if we were wrong, was not about his own misperceptions, but about the electorate, that the electorate was just too slow to catch his kind of change. And that's the criticism people say in that. What's your response to that? Oh,
absolutely not, John. I mean, what President Obama has said his entire political career is that his bet was always on the American people. He couldn't have become the first African-American president, a two-term president, without the confidence of the American people. I think what he's getting at is a bigger phenomenon in the world. Again, we were on a trip that led up to that comment that he made, where we saw Angela Merkel in Germany, who had taken huge flack for letting in Syrian refugees and literally had a tear in her eye the last time she saw President Obama. We left Justin Trudeau sitting there alone, wondering what was going to happen with President Trump, and now we see. We'd seen President Xi Jinping of China, who made kind of an ominous comment to us that if an immature leader throws the world into chaos, the world will know who to blame. And he was not talking about President Obama. And I think what he's referring to there is a sense of globalization, of immigration and trade, that we're part of an enterprise, basically, a liberal international order that had pushed very far at changing the nature of our world over the last several decades. And the question is, did that get too far ahead of voters in places like the United States and the United Kingdom, who were feeling a sense of uncertainty because of that change?
This book was so personal to me. It seemed to me about you, Ben. I mean, you really talked about your place in the administration, questioning what you were doing there. When do you fit in? and being a speechwriter for some of the most iconic speeches, how do you write for someone that you really didn't know very well, and how you navigated those waters?
Yeah, I mean, what I really wanted to try to convey to a reader is I was 29 years old when I went to work for Barack Obama. I didn't have a plan to be the Deputy National Security Advisor. I wanted to help him get elected president. And I remember, you get this great opportunity to write for this guy who's a great orator, but I didn't really know him. And so what I did is I spent weeks listening to all of his interviews, trying to get inside his voice. He wrote a very revelatory book, Dreams of My Father, that I must have read several times, and I could lift from that and put passages in speeches. But ultimately, you have to forge a connection with the guy who you're working for, and I had some good opportunities on that campaign to get close to him.
You said we didn't always get things right, but the larger project of believing that America is a better place. When you look at the Trump administration, many people believe that they're trying to unravel and undo everything the Obama administration did. Does he feel that way, and do you members of the administration feel that everything that you did, the work that you accomplished, that they're now trying to take it all apart? Do you feel that?
Well, certainly there's certain policies that they've targeted, Paris Climate Agreement, Cuba, TPP. There's not an ideological rationale for why you would take down all of those policies, other than that Barack Obama did them. But again, it comes back to the what if we were wrong question. Look, I say in the book, we didn't get everything right, and I say that there are things I still don't know, I'm not certain about. I'll be thinking about the rest of my life. I'm sure I'll be thinking about decision-making on Syria the rest of my life. But the fact that America is a progressive, inclusive country that has a future that is more inclusive and more diverse, that I truly do believe. And frankly, I think the project of the Obama presidency, that it will endure for decades, that's the direction America is headed, and that's not the direction that Donald Trump is headed. So I think when history has its accounting here, America is going to end up looking a lot more like the Obama presidency than the Trump presidency.
All right, Ben Rhodes, congratulations on the book. The World as It Is goes on sale tomorrow.